Hello and welcome back to Miniverse, where today we are making my first ever mini-rama. Or a mini diorama, as you will. So recently I've been looking through my so-called pile of shame and realised I still had some Necrons and Space Marines and this random base lying around. So let's try and make a mini diorama using this little base. So I started by scoring up the base so that our fellow air-drying clay can hang out on it. The reason being is this clay needs a firm surface to grip onto. The last thing we want is this little guy slipping away when we pick him up. So here's the Necron model I had laying around, and he is super cool. But I'm not actually a fan of this pose. It's a little too heroic static for my liking. So I snip off his arm, getting ready to penetrate a Space Marine later on. And speaking of that Space Marine, I eventually managed to drill a hole into him so that his Necron claw could fit in. Originally I was going to have some gross horror on his leg, but it fully snapped off, so I decided to make it look like it was shot off by a plasma gun. So after kneecapping him, let's snip off this bit and get ready to twist his arm. Oh wow, it didn't snap. And luck be a lady tonight, the wires from the other arm fit perfectly. And with that, let's make some battle damage and get ready to turn our now primed boy blue. Recently, I'm slowly starting to actually enjoy airbrushing more because man, before I would literally delay projects because I'd have to use an airbrush. But it's actually getting kind of fun now. So after that I used a nice turquoise colour to dry brush him all over. And might I say, look at that skill, the form, the perfection of this dry brushing. Being serious though, I was in a mega rush and I used extremely cheap makeup brushes. However, I have always wondered what an actual dry brush feels like. Anyway, back to painting. So next I use some Rhinox hide to paint these juicy brown leathery parts, his pouches and gun strap. Moving on to the shiny golden pauldrons, which I must say, Retributor Gold is a really nice vibrant gold paint. And this is actually one of the only times painting these edges went on the first time, which was amazing. So all that's left to do is paint the metallics and get shading. For the shade, I'm going to use a black enamel wash, literally all over his body, weapons, and all that jazz. So after 15 minutes have passed, once the enamels have settled, I'm using a cotton wool bud soaked in Winsor & Newton's Sansador. Let's remove most of the wash and reveal those highlights. What I'm aiming to achieve here is to leave the black wash in any recesses like his armour panels and the lines around any trim, also including any shadowy areas. And with the Space Marine out of the way, let's paint the Necron. And for this colour scheme, I'm roughly doing the same as this diorama, as it's going to be set in the same scene and planet. Necrons are hunting down their targets and they've finally made it. Funny enough, a great technique to shake up your paints is to use a muscle gun to shake up those pots. But be warned, you'll never look at your hand in slow-mo again. So let's airbrush some Imperial Fist yellow contrast paint all over the model. I must say, airbrushing these contrast paints is so much fun. Now we have our yellow lad, we're going to use charcoal black as our accent colour. Just imagine an evil bumblebee, or the Hyperion bots from Borderlands, that this is largely based off. For the metallics, I'm going to be using Scales 75's black metal for any of the shiny bits that I think should be silver. And then I'll be using decayed metal to separate any of the metallic areas from the silver. I think it's a really nice paint and it brings back that Egyptian feel. Now it's time to add some depth, and I'll be dry brushing a mid-grey and a light grey all over the black surfaces. And with any of my dioramas or mini painting videos, you know the drill. It's time to whack out that dark brown wash and coat all the yellow armour panels, and don't be shy. I did try to avoid any of the metallics and black armour panels. However, I do wonder how many Necrons back at home are actually in charge of painting the other Necrons. Like, are there Necrons whose job it is just to paint? Are there artists, musicians? Who knows? Certainly not me. And this leads us to the removal process. Unlike the Space Marine, I wanted to leave patches of wash on the panels to add some more depth and just general grim dankness. Now for any area where I was going to paint green, I painted it white beforehand. Then I used Striking Scorpion's green contrast paint from Games Workshop for all the green areas. One of the great things with it being a thin paint is that you can easily wipe away any excess and just keep it in those recesses, baby. Now let's journey back to the base and stick some foam so that I don't have to use a metric ton of clay. So after building his little mound, I press the Necron into the clay so I have a reference point later for where I'm going to put him. Now let's make the dirt, and for this I'm using Smart Mud 2.0. Which is fantastic, but so difficult to use. The clay really hates to stick to anything, which is great for a lot of situations, but terrible for all the ones I need it for. So after enjoying the clay, I popped on some resin destroyed city bits to add some general atmosphere and story to the base. I then gave it a zenithal highlight outside. And when it comes to painting mud, I love a base coat of raw oxide and a quick dry brush of light brown with a wash. With dry brushing dirt, I pretty much go as hectically as possible, aiming to make it as randomised as I can for some different texture. So next was painting all the bits and gluing the hand onto the Space Marine. And finally gluing the Necron onto the diorama. Which means it's time to add some snow. Now you may love or hate this, or just generally feel indifferent, but as it's the same planet as before, I really wanted to make the snow start to melt like we're moving into spring. Whether it looks like that or not, I don't know. And there you have it, you've made it to the end of the video, and you have my utmost thanks. And always make sure to like the video, it really helps me out. And check my socials if that's your jazz. I've been Reese, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.